of this woman who lived from the era of the horse and cart through to motor cars and flight. So she moved through that whole era. But her third child to a fellow called Red Kelly was Ned Kelly. And that's what this story is about. Grantlee Kieza, one of our best journalists and authors, has written the story of Ellen Quinn, Ned Kelly's mum. He's on the line. Grantlee, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on the program. Yeah, she was an extraordinary woman, Ellen Kelly.
She certainly sounds like it. I mean, was she our first crime matriarch in Australia?
Well, I guess she was to a large extent. She presided over a large family, and two of the sons became strangers, and the third son, Jim Kelly, spent a long time in prison. The only reason he wasn't a member of the Kelly gang was because he was in jail at the time. But it's extraordinary with her life, an astonishing thing that even after all the crimes of her children and the crimes of her in-laws as well, who really were a blight on northern Victoria and a scourge to the police, she spent the rest of her life, her later years, as a very much respected figure. And when she died, the papers that had once called her a notorious woman were very fulsome in their praise of her as a calming influence on that part of northern Victoria. She managed to calm all the hotheads down after the Kelly outbreak and stopped even further trouble in northern Victoria.
So what you've done with this book, basically, Grantlee, is peer through the fogs of time that mythology has bestowed upon the Kelly gang. Because now we look at them as sort of protectors of the oppressed and the working class, when in fact they were just a big crime family back then, weren't they?
Well, they were dangerous people. Ned Kelly in particular was a dangerous guy. There's no doubt that the police came down very heavy on him, but I think that was largely because of the fact that he was coming down very heavy on the citizens around him. He was a dangerous guy. He was master of a big horse-stealing gang, which I suppose the equivalent today would be a car rebirthing gang. And he was a dangerous bloke to cross. He was involved in armed robberies from the age of 15 with a guy called Harry Power. So he was a bloke you didn't want to mess with. And he involved, sadly, the rest of his family paid a pretty heavy price for his involvement in crime. And Mrs. Kelly got caught up in his operations and was sent to jail at the age of 46. She was already a grandmother by then, and she had her own new baby, her 12th and final baby, at the breast at the age of 46, and she was sent to jail for 3 years with the baby with her. So she did it very, very tough because of Ned Kelly's criminality.
How was she seen by people at the time? Because she was heading up a family that, you know, she'd had multiple partners, obviously. Yep. So was she seen as a bit of a trollop herself?
No, I wouldn't say that. She was, at the age of 34, her husband died and left her with 7 small children and absolutely no money. They tried to make a new life for themselves at Greeter in northern Victoria, just outside Glenrowan. And they'd only been there a little while when one of her mad brothers-in-law came along and burnt the house down. So she's now got 7 children, no house, no money, and they're all sleeping in the grass, more or less. So I think she took a young lover who she hoped would be a stepfather to her children and help her provide for them, but he abandoned her when she was pregnant, and not long after she met another guy and she married him, but he turned out to be a rogue as well. But she had 3 children with him, and he abandoned her as well. So she did it very, very tough for male companionship, but even her youngest children, even though they were surrounded by criminality, one of the children, her youngest son Jack, actually became a very well-regarded policeman in later life and a world-famous rodeo rider. So even though they'd been raised in an atmosphere of criminality and anger against the law over what had happened to Ned Kelly, she infused in them a sense that it was no good fighting the law, that they'd better sort of toe the line.
I mean, as we mentioned, Ned was her third child?
Yes.
Was she close to him?
Very close. In fact, I guess she did her best to keep him on the straight and narrow in the way that she sent him to school when she had money. She didn't always have money, but she sent him to school, and he did a couple of years at school in Beveridge and Avenel. And when Ned Kelly was on the run and his mother was arrested over wounding a policeman trying to protect her other son, he actually offered to give himself up several times to the law if they would release her, and he was facing a death sentence. So it gives an indication just how close their bond was. And there's scenes in the book, the recollections of the jail governor, John Cousteau, at Melbourne Jail, which are really, really heart-wrenching. When Ned Kelly's brought in all shot up after the siege at Glenrowan, he's not expected to live, and his mother's brought in to visit him, and she sees her firstborn son and the guy who had been her protector and the man of the family since he was the age of 11 all bleeding and busted up, and she knows that even if the doctors bring him back to health, which they're trying to do, it's only so that he can go to the gallows. So she spends 5 months in jail with him, awaiting his sad fate at the end of a rope.
And she's apparently in the room next to him when he's executed. Is that right?
Yeah. She was in the jail laundry next to the gallows. So when he went through the trapdoor, the almighty clang and all the other prisoners screaming and yelling and protesting. There's people outside the jail protesting with placards. But she had to endure all that, and it's quite remarkable. Even though she was surrounded by criminals all her life, when she was in jail, there was not one black mark against her prison record in there. She was actually a model prisoner, and the jail governor Casteau said that she was the most popular prisoner in there, and she was seen as a real steady influence on all the other inmates around her and a calming influence. So she was very, very well regarded in her later years.
You've obviously spent a lot of time, Grantlee, looking into the history of this family. I mean, how do you feel about the Kellys now? Do you subscribe to the myth that's around now that they were the protectors of the oppressed?
Part of the book, I wanted to clear up a lot of the mythology about the Kelly family. I see that Ned Kelly was very hard done by times by the police, but there's certainly no excuse for what he did later on in shooting the police. So he claimed it was self-defense, and he still has a lot of people that defend him saying, the police were out to kill him. And there's even been mythology that they were some sort of hit squad and they were carrying special straps to tether bodies to them when they went looking for him at Stringy Bark Creek, and he was only defending himself. I spoke to the great-grandson of one of the policemen, Sergeant Michael Kennedy. His great-grandson is Leo Kennedy and lives in Melbourne. And he's absolutely aghast at the mythology around Ned Kelly. He says it was nothing but cold-blooded murder. Ned Kelly ambushed the police and shot them.
I think Australia still remains divided. Grantlee, congratulations on the book. Fantastic effort, and good luck with it.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Grantlee Kieza there with that book on Ned Kelly's mum. Very interesting, isn't it? Fascinating. 13 12 83.